Cool.
Okay.
Cool. It always feels weird when it turns on. I'm like, it's begun. Like, now people are listening. Now everything I say has to be re-listened to and maybe cut out. And yeah.
Generations shall hear what you say from here on out. That I don't cut out, but
Yeah. I sure hope you leave enough in that I sound silly, so which is okay. That's good. Like I should sound silly because but yeah. Welcome to episode 17.
If you want, I could cut everything that makes you sound silly, and then it'd be a really weird edit.
Then we'd have no podcast. Then there'd be only your podcast. And so, let's
just
not
me
do that.
talking into the abyss.
To the void, yes.
And then laughing to myself occasionally.
Indeed. Cracking funny jokes that are only funny to no one because you're missing half of it, and all the good stuff.
That's true.
All right, so follow-up. First round of follow-up that I did an hour ago.
Okay.
I made myself a cake bowl.
Oh, man. It's happened.
It has happened. The cake bowl has landed. I was going to put it in a bowl, and then there was no bowls because we haven't done the dishes in like 2 days, and we got some Trix cereal, and that has been using a lot of the bowls. We don't normally eat cereal around this house, so So instead, I pulled out my "Fall in Love with You" mug, and
That's okay. A mug is a reasonable replacement for this item.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I think it would have been better in a bowl, but that's okay.
Okay.
I followed the directions exactly. Well, pretty exactly. It's kind of hard. Cake is kind of a hard substance. I didn't get out a spoon, and I didn't specifically measure it. I figured I'd be okay. So I put the cake, I put the water to your wife's specifications.
Good.
And then I microwaved it exactly as before I put it in the microwave, I turned to my wife and I was like, "Hey, you think this is gonna big enough? Like, do you think it's gonna expand and flow out of the mug?" And she was like, "Nah, it should be fine." And I was like, "Okay." So we threw it in the microwave, and at about 20 seconds left, I looked at it, and it was all over the mug. So it worked great. It worked great.
That is a slight issue.
So my next question for you and your wife is the recipe ratio compatible? Like, can I reduce the ratio of things appropriately?
I would imagine that would be the case. I can't see why not.
And does the cooking time change for how much I vary my ratios? Is my second question regarding that.
I don't know. But given the fact that you weren't measuring anything else very carefully, I imagine you could probably adjust that to your liking, and you should be fine.
Got it. Okay.
Seems a little hypocritical, my friend, that you ask for all these specific directions and then you didn't bother to measure exactly.
Well, because I pulled out a measure. I used a measuring cup. I didn't just I give me the specifications and then just pour it all in there. I measured it. I was a little sloppy with my cake mix measuring because cake mix is like flour where you have to spoon it out into the cup. So
okay, I see what you're saying.
One of my cups was a little light and one of my cups was a little heavy, and so I don't know.
I see.
But
okay, that's not as reckless as I was seeing in my mind when you were doing this process.
You're just seeing the Swedish chef just throwing cake mix all over the place is what you're seeing. That is not what I did.
You just spilled it all over the table as you're pouring it in. Yeah, that looks good. Why not?
Right. No. I was see, because if you just you put some cake mix and some water in a bowl, you're like, what do you mean? Do I put half and half? It could go horribly wrong. And so I was following the directions. Don't you worry.
Okay. I'm glad to hear.
It was warm, and I pulled it out, and then I got a spoon, and I ate some.
Okay.
And then I had my wife try a little bit, and let me tell you, the texture was so far from what I expected.
Really?
I don't know what I expected, but like I was just like, huh. And my wife was like, this tastes like a cloud, a cake flavored cloud. I was like,
That's a
yes,
pretty good description. I like that.
right? It's perfect. That's exactly what like the texture is what threw me off the most because it's like cake has a very cakey texture. It's like structured and kind of crumbly and but like when you do it this way, it's just so smooth. Like it's just that was the only word that came to mind was like smooth. It was like smooth in my mouth. I was like, this is good. So
Well, good.
it was delightful. And then my next thought was like, I don't know what manner of which craftery this is, but it is delightful. And then I tried it with ice cream because we have some ice cream. My cute wife bought some yesterday, and it was delightful. I don't know if I like it better with or without ice cream yet. It needs to go for a couple more rounds.
Okay.
It's like an amazing way to make cake, though. Like I'm like, yeah, you just make cake. Like it's done. Like I don't have to go through the whole bother of getting out a bowl and all the stuff, mixing it up, throwing it in the tin, throwing it in the oven, make sure the oven's preheated. Nonsense. All of that is nonsense compared to this beautiful method.
I'm so excited to see what you come up with, my friend. I can't think of a better item to give to you and let you just play with. It's kind of like handing a baby a little toy and they just kind of chew on it and, throw it all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where you take cake bowls from here because you'll use it for all sorts of uses that I could have never imagined.
Indeed.
I don't know anyone else with your kind of taste that could take it as far as I will see you take it someday.
Someday we will see. I appreciate it so much. I think it's a perfect I don't like a cold, rainy, lazy, don't want to do anything day. Like that's what it's perfect for. Although I have to say, I did also try it with milk, thinking, maybe sometimes milk is a good complement for baked goods. So I poured some milk in the mug. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. It was like I could tell almost as soon as I poured the milk in that it was going to be bad.
Sort of like a Oreo crumbly milk except Oreo milk can taste good. But I can see what you're saying though. It wouldn't quite work. You remove all the cloud texture and then you just have kind of lumpy cake bits in there.
You get it's like it turns it from like this weird like angel food cake delightful thing to all of a sudden now it's like blended oatmeal. Like it's like the wrong texture all of a sudden. Like it's really fine. It's smooth still, but it's like mush. It's like,
yeah.
I undid everything that the microwave did, so it's no good. But thank you, my friend.
Good.
For introducing
I'm glad
me
this
to
was
cake
a
bowls.
pleasant experience for you.
I was, in my heart of hearts, I was hoping that it was actually just going to be horrible and everything was going to go wrong and I could like blame you, but it didn't work out that way. So I have another good thing in my life. Oh no, my life is hard sometimes, but that's okay.
Years from now, we'll just have some amazing confectionery item that had root in cake bowls that you invent. And my children will partake of it and they'll be like, Daddy, where did this amazing, delicious gift from heaven come from? And I'll be like, well, children, it comes from your adopted Uncle Aaron.
Oh, no.
You mean the crazy one that lives on the mountain? Yeah, that one.
That one. Oh, yeah, that one. The babbling one? Yeah, that one. Yeah.
The one that lives in the cave with his wood shop? Yep, that one.
That's the one.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear these things.
It is good. My life is better for it. So, next round of follow-up is I watched Tangled.
Oh, really?
And Frozen. I know I watched Tangled, and I can't remember if I watched either of the Frozen after we talked last.
Okay.
But I watched them all again, and I have thoughts. Many, many thoughts.
That's probably an understatement. Dear listeners, I gotta see the notes for today's podcast, and Aaron has many, many thoughts listed. I didn't even read all of them because there was too many listed. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
Well, see, so my notes. Okay, spoiler warning. We're talking about Tangled, Frozen, and Frozen 2. Okay, everyone, good. Okay, if you don't want to listen, then leave, please, so that I don't ruin anything for you. So the way I did my thoughts was I was watching the movie. And since I was in my home, I had my phone out and I was just taking notes as they came to my head. All in all, still a highly enjoyable movie. Love that movie. I have never looked at it with as critical of a gaze as I did this last time. So I enjoyed it less because I was being more critical. But
Interesting.
so I want to know, before I start in with these notes, I want to hear your summary of how you feel about Tangled.
So I think the best way of thinking about Tangled is a similar experience you described last time on Frozen. And I think we talked about this a little bit, but if you think about a lot of the Disney movies that came out before Tangled, you really can't think of many because they were all pretty terrible. There's really like a big gap in my mind from like Emperor's New Groove to Tangled. None of the Disney cartoons were really that good. There was Chicken Little and Home on the Range, and like those stories were okay, but they weren't like classic Disney, you know?
Right.
There was a lot of good Pixar movies before they had kind of done that merge. But in my mind, there was like this like gap. And up until that point, I had just like decided that a good Disney movie would never come out ever again.
What?
I just kind of decided like, oh, the good old days, they're gone.
Oh,
Whether
man.
it's just studio quality or me aging and longing for nostalgia.
Yeah.
Surely no good Disney movie will come along again.
Oh, man.
That's the rough starting point of my opinion, right? The cynical nature going into watching Tangled. And when I went to go see it, it just had every aspect of the classic Disney movies, similar to Hercules and Mulan and Beauty and the Beast, etc. It was funny. It had characters that you could connect with. It had a good storyline. It had good music. And it's a tired, beaten, old formula, but for me, it works. And so I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And just the fact that it stayed so consistent to the old style of doing a movie.
Okay.
I think that's the quickest summary I could give.
That's amazing. I think you're totally right. That's great. I just like, I totally agree. You know, it's like, yeah, I can't really think of anything before Tangled that was like sweet, you know, something that like really struck a chord with me. I remember Tangled was really good, you know, real good.
Right.
And I've never heard thoughts so down on Disney in that manner before. It's just never come up, you know. It's just, they're never going to make a good movie again.
I'm not allowed to say that anymore, but
right. Well, I mean,
they'll find me.
The mouse will find you. He'll get you.
You don't upset the mouse. Big M. You better watch out.
Okay. So it's actually been so long since I saw Tangled last. Like, it feels like a really long time. Like, I was watching it, I was like, man, it's been a long time since I saw this movie.
Right.
Do you just want all the thoughts that I wrote down, or do you just...
I think that's the best point because I can't think of specifics that we want to talk about until you bring them up. With Frozen, it was easier because you liked it and I didn't, and vice versa on Frozen too. So that one was easy debate, but I'm not quite sure where your full standing is on Tangled yet. So I think getting into the specifics will help.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the end in mind, actually, because my wife and I finished the movie and we were both like, you know what? My wife brought up a fabulous point. She said that it's not really fair to compare the two movies. If you want to take Tangled and Frozen, like she said it's not really fair to compare them. And after watching Tangled again, I agree that it's not they're not a good comparison because they do different things well. And there's no point, you know, there's not a lot of benefit to be brought up by just like straight comparing them.
That's an interesting perspective.
Right. Well, that was kind of, she said that, and I agree with her, and that kind of colors my thoughts throughout the movie. But it's a great movie. One of my favorite parts is when she's putting Flynn Rider in the closet, and she's got all the different ways to put him in. Oh, yes. I was cracking up. I was dying. It's so funny.
Just one of those very natural types of humor that everyone can relate to.
Right.
Trying to put something in a closet that doesn't fit, and this time it happens to be a full-grown man.
Well, and I have to say, people are heavy, okay?
Are you speaking from experience?
I am indeed. Whenever you have to pick up somebody, you realize that they're actually pretty heavy, no matter how small they may be. Like 100 pounds is a
This
lot
is
of
true.
weight. Like that's a lot of mass, you know? And so like,
Yes.
especially like a floppy, like knocked out guy. Oh man, it's hilarious watching her try to put him in the closet. Some of the things that I think are best about Tangled is like, I mean, basically the whole moral of the story, like this highly toxic relationship that she has with her mom in air quotes,
Hmm.
with the witch or whatever,
Right.
the crazy lady. I think it's really good that they made a movie like that because the movies have a good way of putting things clearly. You know, you can take a movie and you can simplify a lot of things down to make it obvious.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel is what happened in this movie. You know, they simplify this toxic relationship that she has with her supposed mom, and I'm like really glad that they did that because that's a hard relationship to understand that it is highly toxic. You know, those relationships in real life, you know, when people actually have those problems, it's really hard for people to understand that and to see that. And I think I'm really glad that that's in there and that they did that so well. I thought they did that just fabulously.
Right. Bringing up that point, I've never thought about this until you've brought this up actually, but that scene where she keeps going back and forth on whether she should go back.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm never going home, and like, I'm a terrible person.
Right.
It's a very comedic scene.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're right. It's accurate to that depiction of those types of relationships are hard because it's not just oh yeah, I'm so glad I'm done with that. You do have that internal battle because you do care about people even if they are in that toxic relationship.
Right.
They do a good job of portraying that in a very natural and real way, but in a funny way as well.
Yeah, yeah. I thought, yeah, I agree.
That's like the deepest thought I ever thought I would hear about Tangled. This is going way deeper than I was expecting.
Oh, that's good. Cause
I thought you were going to say like the horse is funny.
the horse.
Like, I wasn't expecting these deep inner thoughts from you on this. But this is good. I'm glad.
I actually really like the horse. He's so funny. Maximus, that's the one. Yes.
Did you have any more thoughts on talking animals after watching this in our previous discussion? I can feel an internal battle going on inside you.
Well, see, I watched it, and like the whole time I'm watching it, and all the things are happening. Like every time they do it, I'm like, that was good. That was well done, you know. And they do it really well throughout the whole movie. Like none of it's really too bad, I think, except for one part I don't get, and one part that I think should have been left out. But for most of the movie, I thought, yeah, this is great. And then it like compounds the struggle inside my brain of like, so if I think it's okay, then what's my problem with it? It's like, well, I don't know. Like maybe it's just too much. Like maybe it's like they just do it a little too much. Like there's two animals in this movie, and they're both very much like. They layer it on, you know. They're people, you know. They're people for all anyone cares, and they act like people.
Right. You said there was one part that you didn't understand.
Oh, one part
is too much for you.
I don't like. I did not like it. I thought it was a bad artistic choice. It's the last scene. It's the very end. It's right after Flynn cuts Rapunzel's hair. And
right.
the mom's starting to like crumble away, you know. She's just like gone, like she's a goner, you know. And it's
right.
obvious that the years of living off of this power are catching up to her all at once. And so she's like screaming and flailing, and it's like a really scary scene.
Right.
But not like too scary, you know. Like after watching the movie, I'm kind of like, finally, like we're getting rid of her. Like we're finally getting rid of this person because they're a horrible person, you know. She's just being a bad human, you know. But then
right.
she's backing up like towards the window, and you're like, oh yeah, she's gonna fall out the window. And then the lizard trips her, like pulls like some of Rapunzel's now cut hair tight and trips her out the window. And that's the one moment where I'm like, you know, guys, you shouldn't have done that. Like, I had clearer thoughts when I watched it, but I was like, this isn't like I don't this isn't a funny part, like, and we don't need to make it less like tense because it's not too tense. Like I'm not feeling it, it doesn't feel too intense, and it's not like it's funny, it doesn't add any humor for me.
Right. I've never thought about that one
Yeah.
either. But yeah, that's totally true. I forgot about that.
And it's like, why'd he trip her? Like she was going anyway, it's just as,
Especially the fun-loving animal, that's not really in their nature.
yeah, yeah.
Anyways.
And like she was obviously going out the window, there's a ledge on the window. And so like, yeah, she's going to trip and fall out. Like they could have done that and gotten rid of that whole like 2-second scene. Like just nix that whole thing.
Or she could have just tripped on the hair regardless.
Yeah.
Just because her hair is heavy.
Yeah, slip a little bit. Hair is kind of, I assume it's slippery. I don't know. In that quantity, I assume it's like kind of a tangle, and she could have gotten tangled up in it, and then just like it just trips her.
Yeah.
I think it would have been less like lighthearted, but I think that was a bad time to add something lighthearted in. It's like we're finally getting rid of the demon that's torturing Rapunzel, and I think it should be a moment of like,
should be somber.
yeah, of
Not
seriousness.
necessarily sad, but somber.
Yeah, right. Because I mean,
a deep moment in the movie.
right. Because that's what it's followed up with. Before that, Flynn is dying, and he cuts Rapunzel's hair, knowing that he's gonna die because of it.
Right.
And so it's really serious. This is a very serious moment in the movie, and then there's like this little silliness put in there, and then we're back to Flynn dying. It's like, let's not make light of the villain dying. It's like it's just as sad that someone else has to die, but if that's the way that we free someone, then that's how it is. That's I don't know. I don't know.
Wow. Again, the most deep and intricate detail I could have ever imagined for this movie. I think this just shows part of the things about good movies in general is we're really good at picking out the bad parts of movies we don't like. I think everyone's really good at that. I might be particularly good at that. But especially Disney movies, I think it is. I think that was one of the things I liked about it is because it felt so much like a nostalgic Disney movie. The analytical part of my brain turned off, and I just watched it for what it was.
Yeah.
And like I didn't critique it as much as I usually do.
Right.
But as you point out a lot of these things, I'm like, yeah, that really doesn't really fit, or there are moments I could be analyzing more, but I think I never have because my brain has just accepted that this is nostalgic Disney.
Right.
And thus I should not be critiquing it. It's the power of the mouse, as we have talked about.
I can't put it better. That's why I feel like this watch through was different than any other watch through, because I was watching it with a critical eye rather than just enjoying it for the movie that it was. That was the problem with the first time I watched Frozen 2, was it's like I was being too critical of it. I enjoyed the movie a lot more if I don't care about all the nitpicky weird little stuff, and I just enjoy the movie, just enjoy it.
Right.
And love the good parts that it does really well, And so,
well, and that's the thing I like about Tangled compared to Frozen, at least for me, is that balance, though, I will say, of like just enjoying the movie and taking it for what it is. It's very easy to fall out of that.
Yeah.
If there are moments that don't feel right, or things that just upset you in the way that they're done, they're different than the formula,
Yeah.
Then my brain will instantly jump back into critique mode.
Right.
And then suddenly I'm much more critical of the things that are going on, even if for all intents and purposes they've been the same as the previous parts of the movie.
Right. Yes.
And that's probably why I didn't like Frozen, is because I was constantly trying to accept it, and then I'd find something I didn't like, and I'd go back into critique mode. And it was just like this feedback loop of, oh, now this is terrible. This is terrible.
Yeah. No,
I'm finding more and more things I don't like about it.
Yes, no, I agree 100%, because that ties directly into another set of experiences that I was going to talk about today about movies, and particularly about why the first Frozen movie struck me so much. as an interesting good movie, and how that relates to other movies. It's like that is exactly why these things happen. It's like balancing on the edge of a curb. Like nothing goes wrong if you fall off, but it's still a little bit hard, and you still fall off often. You know, you know,
and you're much more irritable if you fall off.
Right? Yeah, it's like the first time you fall off, it's harder to accept it, especially when it's new, and also something that is similar to what you love.
Right.
That's I can't I have no better words than you have said, my friend.
Oh, interesting. That you've opened my eyes to much more than I thought we were going to find in Tangled and in Frozen and all this. Probably the most insightful journey about myself has come from these past 2 episodes. This episode and the last one.
That's so true. Oh.
The listeners just get to hear us finding our inner selves as we're explaining Disney movies.
Yes, that's perfect. Another thought that I had, I'm always one for serious, like I'm always one up for like the movie taking itself too seriously. Like I love that. I love when a movie takes itself very seriously and it doesn't crack a lot of jokes. Like I love that. I don't always love it, but it's, you know, it's what I strive for.
If it's well done, it fits. I agree.
Yeah. One thing for Tangled was the king and queen. I think they did the king and queen perfectly. Like, I would not have changed anything about what they did for the king. Like, number one, they never talk. Like, not once do they talk. And I think that is such a good choice. Like, such a good choice. Because they shouldn't talk. You know, it's like everything that they have is expressed through wordless glances. And it just kills me to see them like that, you know? Because there's not words to say, you know, they don't have anything to say to each other.
Right.
They know what they're thinking, and they just both feel really sad at one part and really happy at another. You know, it's just, I think they did the king and queen absolutely perfectly.
It's interesting that you say that, because if you think about it, they really kind of embody both extremes of terrible loss and incredible joy from those 2 moments that you really see them in the movie on both sides.
Yeah.
And neither of those moments, like you said, really have good words to describe them. So why bother trying to give them lines or anything to describe their pain and their joy?
Yeah.
That's a really cool insight. I like that.
I give them a 10 out of 10 for that. I love that there was an original song for the credits. That's one thing that Frozen's been doing, where they are just doing like punk covers and pop covers of their songs for the opening credit song. And I think that's a bad choice, just because like the credit song like is like, I don't know, it's like part of the movie for me, you know, that first
right,
that first few lines of text and the you know, the first few notes played right after the movie ends, so important.
This is especially true for you, my friend,
know.
because I've never seen anyone sit in a theater for so long just staring blankly in front of them. Not even really watching the credits, just pondering on the movie and letting it soak in before they leave the theater. It is an interesting experience to watch,
yeah.
I would say. Listeners, if you ever get a chance to watch a movie in a theater with Aaron, take it. No matter what the price is, pay it. This is something you'll want to do in your life.
I just get so invested. The theater is the perfect environment to watch a movie in. Like, it's perfect. Like, even sometimes with all the people, like, as long as all the people are like keep their mouths shut, it's great. It's wonderful. Movie theaters are my favorite way to watch movies, always. Like, something about the sound and the way the picture is, and just the feeling of going out and seeing a movie. It's great. It's great.
So your least favorite experience then is when people actually clap at the end of the movie then? Because I hate that too. I'm like, who are you clapping for? No one's going to hear you.
I know, same. I'm like, I don't care if you liked the movie. I'm never going to talk to you. Don't clap. Like, don't nobody clap. Shh. You all just shh. But see, this is another thing where like I feel strongly one way generally, but then like I've also felt the other way about it too. Like I've been like, you know what, that was a good movie. I feel like I should clap in this moment because it was such a good movie.
Right.
And I don't because because you don't clap at movie theater. That's not a thing that you do. But I still don't know how to feel about people clapping at movie theaters. I don't think it's the right thing to do, but I also don't think it's the wrong thing to do. So, it's whatever.
That's fair. It's definitely less bad than standing ovations. We'll agree on that.
Yes.
Anywho, going back to your point on cover
What
songs.
was I saying? Oh, yeah.
I will say Frozen 2 probably had one of the weirdest cover songs for the end credits. With Panic at the Disco doing the Elsa song. That was really weird to me.
It was all wrong, David.
Felt very 90s. A lot of the 90s movies did that, and it was really bad.
Yeah. It just... They picked the perfect people. Like, dude can hit the note like a boss, He just hits the notes, and you're like,
right.
Wow,
that guy can sing.
Exactly. You're like, wow, that's impressive. I wish I could do that. Like, I am a tenor, and I wish I could sing like that guy. But it's just, I don't know. Like, here's my theory. It would work later in the credits too. Like, I would be fine with more of that stuff later, like after I'm done, because it's only the first 30 seconds of the credit song that is. Sometimes it's longer. It depends on the movie, but
you need like a 2-minute overture, not overture. That's the beginning, but whatever that's called. Concluding chur.
We need a yes.
It's over. Chur. That's what we should call it.
It's overture. That's amazing. Oh, I love it.
That's a terrible pun. My dad would appreciate that.
I love it.
Anywho.
I think it should be written in the books of history and never forgotten is what I think that should happen with that pun. So, but like, and then like you ask me like, oh, what would you have done? It's like, I don't know what I would have done. It's not my job to figure out what I would have done. It's my job to like it or dislike it, and I disliked it, So, it's fine.
You give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. That is your job.
Exactly.
Like the royal emperor of Rome or whatever it may be.
In the
in the movie,
the Gladiator movie. Yeah, it's either thumbs up you live or thumbs down you die. It's like, whoa. So I appreciate that they did an original song for the credits in Tangled. It sounded original to me, at least. I don't know.
It was.
Okay,
yeah.
Sweet. It wasn't one of the other songs that had been sung. All the songs in Tangled are pretty good. I really I think they did a great job with all their songs. I really like the beginning one where she just keeps going through the chore list over and over again with her song, trying to stay positive, but obviously not it's not working. I thought it was great.
That's true. I do like the whole soundtrack. I'll be honest, I like the score better than a lot of the songs.
Really?
Like, I'll go and listen to the score over and over because the music's so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to re-listen to that because I don't remember. Like, I can't call that from memory what that song sounds like. I can only remember 3 songs, and that's the chores one and the dream one and the lights, the lantern song. Those are the only songs I can call from memory. So I'll have to check out that score because I believe you because it was highly immersive.
Yeah. Well, that's a sign of good score is that it feels like the movie you're watching.
Yes. Okay, like, seriously, I'm just going to take a side tangent for a second. Like, Interstellar.
Oh,
that
so
guy
good.
He's a freaking genius. It was perfect. The music was perfect,
Yeah, that score is amazing. I can just listen to that while I code for hours.
Oh, yes.
And I just feel like I'm traveling to space,
Yes. It sounds like space travel. Like, nothing sounds like space travel, but that sounds like space travel, man. Oh, I love it.
So good. I'm glad we agree on this point.
I am also glad we agree on this point. Oh, man. Anyway.
Yeah, more Tangled thoughts, or do you want to move on to Frozen?
I have one more Tangled thought, and this comes back to the beginning where I feel like they're less comparable. Like, Tangled and Frozen are not comparable movies.
Okay, I was interested to hear more on why you said this. So
right.
Please continue.
Well, so I got to the end of Tangled, and I was like, it's so silly. But not like silliness, like oh, silly things are happening. Like, so much added
not like watching SpongeBob or something.
Yeah, where they just added a bunch in. and there's just so much, and I'm like, it does it well, it's not like they did a bad job with it. They did a great job. Like, I think the movie's great, and I on a less critical day, I would have found all of the silliness a lot funnier and a lot more enjoyable. But it's so much sillier, and to me it felt so much sillier than Frozen. I checked that with my wife, who agreed with me. I don't know if that means anything to anyone who's listening, but like, I was like, "Am I crazy? Like, is this sillier?" And she's like, "Yeah, this feels sillier than Frozen was." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, yeah." And I think it's a good thing, but I also think it changes the movie enough that I like it. It takes it to I don't know.
Interesting.
Oh man, I can't put my feelings to thoughts so well, but they're just not comparable to me. For me, like you'll only find bad things if you try and compare them. Like it'll only bring out the flaws in either to me.
Can I give you an interesting thought here based on your comments?
Yeah,
because I definitely agree. Tangled is more silly.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Would Frozen have been a better movie if it was live action?
If it was live action?
Yes. Would Frozen have been a better movie if it was live action?
No.
Why do you say that?
No. Because it would have been horrible. That sounds like a horrible thing to. Okay. Well, actually, you know what? This is unfair. I can't say that it would be because that's based on me having already seen Frozen and loving the animation of Frozen. It's like I love what Frozen is, and I
right.
wouldn't want to see it as a. Well, we're gonna go see the play anyway, but I'll report back when I do that.
I think you pointed out something that really explains why I didn't like Frozen.
Okay, why?
Because now that you point out this silliness factor, I agree. I think I went into Frozen expecting kind of the same level of nostalgia, silliness, that type of thing as a cartoon and as Tangled. And Frozen didn't match any of that level. And it kind of sits in an awkward place for me.
Okay.
Because it is a cartoon, because it does have silly things like Olaf, etc.
Right.
And it kind of sits in the middle between funny Disney cartoon that's lighthearted and serious drama type thing, live action drama that we're used to. And I couldn't really mend those two fields in my mind. But I could imagine a version of Frozen that's a little bit more serious and maybe live action, maybe not, but that has a much more serious mentality overall.
Right.
Like it has no silliness, no funny parts, and I could have seen myself liking that version of Frozen.
Better. Right, yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah. No, yeah. No. This is like really distills this helps me understand your mind, it feels like, cuz I'm like, "Oh yeah, duh, like it's less silly, but it's still silly and that just sits in a weird place for you." Like that makes perfect sense. And that's a reasonable. Okay. I think I get it.
Going back to my arguments from last time, remember how I talked a lot about like not being able to relate to the characters, and not being able to kind of understand a lot of the premises, etc. I feel like those things are less important in a drama type scenario. In a live action movie that we're used to.
That's fair, yeah.
I mean, you still obviously need character development and that type of thing, but I don't need to relate to the characters as much. I just need their character development to occur if it's something that I know is a serious type of story. But in a cartoon, I feel like I expect more of that relatability than I would in something like a live action type movie.
Right.
So anyways, I now that you say that, I can see Frozen sitting in this awkward spot.
Yeah.
That it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. And that's totally reasonable. I love it. Now so much understanding between us now. I love it. I love this thing.
Again, one of the most enlightening discussions we've had on one of the strangest subjects.
Yes, the most unexpected of subjects. I didn't even think that we were going to talk about it, and I'm so glad that we're talking about all this stuff.
Okay, dear listeners, we promise we're almost done talking about Frozen. We're almost done talking about these three movies, Tangled, Frozen, and Frozen 2. However, we do have another movie in mind that we may be talking about as well, but we will get to that in a moment.
Indeed.
First, let's just finish talking about Frozen, but there is still more to be said.
Yes. So much more to be said. Although most of it is lost to time. So so my last thought about Frozen actually is more thoughts about movies in general. And so I'm more interested if you have thoughts specific to those three movies to hear them now.
So one thought I had that I want to bring up is you talked last time about the rock giants and how you really liked how they were portrayed in Frozen 2.
Yeah.
When we talked after the podcast for a little bit, I realized it actually has a really big connection to a deep idea in social theory.
What's that?
I want to tell you a little story.
Okay.
And because you had mentioned one of the things you liked about the rock giants is that they were never too present. They kind of come in and out quickly. You only see them a couple times. And when you do see them, they're pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
And very frightening, really. Like if something bad happened, then Elsa or Anna would be dead, or whatever it would be.
Right, yeah.
So they still kept that scariness to them.
Yeah. It's like no joke, There's no we're not cracking jokes about the rock giants,
Right. And I realized that the reason this is so well done in this movie is because of something that's called near-miss theory in sociology. So here's the story. I can't remember. It's in one of the Malcolm Gladwell books, I think. And it actually has to deal with World War II. What happened is after England realized that the Germans were going to be doing a lot of bombing raids on London and things like that, they built essentially mental hospitals on the outskirts of town because they thought that the people that lost friends and family in the bombing raids would be totally distraught and people would just be kind of scared and all sorts of things. So they built all these mental hospitals essentially and just places for people to get help if they had anxieties or anything like this to go to. But what happened is once the bombing raids started, the hospitals and other places filled up for a little bit, and then they nearly were empty from there on out. And the reason why, of course, the British will just say that they have a stiff upper lip or something like that, but really what was going on is something called near-miss theory, which is how far away you are from a miss and how often that miss occurs affects how intimidating that is to you. So people that were super close to a bomb that could have potentially killed them but didn't, those types of people would have very high anxiety about this type of situation. That's PTSD for soldiers and things like that. That's very serious.
Yeah.
But the further and further away you got, and the more frequent those bombing raids became and nothing happened, the less and less it seems like a threat. And the less and less it seemed like a threat to the British.
Right.
And so people would just go about their day. And even though it's a bombing raid, obviously something that's very dangerous and attacking their town, etc., it would just become something like, just another bombing raid. Obviously, they wouldn't describe it like that, but your brain disassociates the danger from it because it happens so often and it seems so far away.
Okay, yeah.
So connecting this to movies and Frozen 2, like you said, this can happen a lot in movies and in games, I think, where if you're not careful, the really scary, intimidating thing that you're trying to make doesn't become that because you show them too often. They never seem dangerous. It's always a very distant threat, that type of thing.
Right.
And so you become less and less inclined to be fearful of it because it's treated so distantly from you.
Right.
And so I just thought it was an interesting connection that if you're not careful, if you show them too often or don't make them seem intimidating because they're always distant or whatever it would be, then you lose that element of the story.
Okay. I think that's fair. No, I think you're right. Because Honestly, one of the things that I crave in movies is for the scary thing to be scary for the whole movie, you know?
Right.
But not like scary movies. I don't like horror movies. They don't do anything for me. But like just regular movies and regular games. I want them to be scary. I like wanted the Rock Giants to be scary. And I think you're totally right. Okay, I'm gonna restate. I'm gonna say what I'm thinking. If it's right, tell me if it's right. If it's wrong, tell me if it's wrong.
Okay.
Basically, the way that they treated the Rock Giants versus other movies and games, like the first one that always jumps to mind when I talk about this stuff is Halo 4, the game, where you as Master Chief are going to an alien planet. Like you find an alien planet that you've never been to before. And obviously there's going to be things there that are going to be dangerous, you know, and
Right.
whatever. I was pretty excited because Halo 3 had an amazing ending. And then Halo 4 came around and it was really dull and boring. And I noticed that because the first trailer that I ever saw for Halo 4 showed the new bad guys.
Right.
And it's one of those things where like I saw them so often, like and like you get in the game and like you're just fighting them all the time. And you deal with them so often that all of a sudden it feels normal. Like it feels like
They're too familiar.
yeah, exactly. Like they're no longer scary because they're not interesting because I see them all the time. You know, and it's
Right.
they themselves no longer hold any fear for me. Whereas like the Rock Giants, we hardly saw them, and every time we did, it was a big deal,
Right.
and it was very dangerous. You know, they played it up a lot, or not even played it up a lot because they played it how they should have played it. But I didn't see them as frequently, and every time I did see them, they weren't made light of. You know, they were less frequent and still always made to be serious. I don't know.
Right.
Is that a corrected, like, is that the same?
Yes. That's what I'm trying to say using very
Okay.
deep social analogies and history.
Right.
Less frequent and very immediate danger.
Yeah. And you know what? Yes. I think movies do that way too much where they just play up the danger and then there's no danger, you know?
Right. It's kind of weird because we want the opposite of what near miss theory says.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, that's what we're going for the intimidating, intense experience.
Right. Well, it's like action movies are some of the worst because it's like, oh no, like they're going to get saved in the nick of time, you know? And it's like, granted, Frozen 2 did that, you know? At one point, Anna is running away from these giants throwing boulders at her. She nearly gets hit a couple of times, but then like one is going to step on her and Kristoff comes and saves her, right?
Right.
And they do that, like, sure, but it's not like they did it 2 or 3 times. I don't know.
You know what movie is the worst at this?
What?
I'm pretty sure is absolute worst at this idea is the Hobbit 3 movie, The Battle of the Five Armies.
Okay, yeah.
So bad at this. Do you remember that at all?
Oh,
I tried to
man.
forget that movie.
That movie. So little of it is retained in my memory because so little of it felt important while I was watching the movie. I just couldn't.
I just remember that there's 3 or 4 times that Oakenshield, is that his name? The head hobbit or dwarf guy
I think so.
is on the ground about to get killed by an orc, and then that orc gets stabbed in the back by someone else
Oh
before
my gosh.
he gets killed. You know, like they do the same trick over and over, so it just never felt like he was ever in danger because
Right.
you knew someone was just gonna stab that orc in the back. Like it was so bad with this
Yeah.
movie.
Yes. Okay. Horrible, and I do not like when movies do that. My thoughts when you're talking about that immediately went back to Lord of the Rings and like why that didn't happen in Lord of the Rings. I was like, well, cause in the third movie, like I just watched the third movie, and like, cause in the third movie, that one dude, the orc just stabs him and he dies. You know, it's like
Yeah.
he just dies. You know, it's like
Consequences for these actions. Yes, that's how it works.
when will they learn that their choices have consequences? Yes. Okay. Yes. I wish movies wouldn't do that. I wish they would make it scary. I want to be scared. Not jump scares and not horror scares. I want to feel like this thing in this movie is actually a concern and a problem.
One other idea that I have on Frozen,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually a problem with a lot of movies
Okay.
that might actually lead into our discussion of the next movie on our list.
Ooh, okay.
But I really liked Frozen 2. Again, like I talked about last time, I liked it even though I recognize it probably wasn't as good of a movie as Frozen 1 from a cinematography standpoint.
Yeah, right.
But the thing I didn't like about Frozen 2 was the concept of unexplored themes. And this is one that really bugs me in movies these days.
Okay.
So, for example, there's a scene in Frozen 2 where Elsa goes to that island on the north across the river. I can't remember that name. I'm not going to say it because I'm going to butcher it, but it's her origin story place where her mom is, right?
Right. I am also not going to say it because I will also mess it up. So yes, we all know. We all know.
That special frozen island place that she goes. That's what we'll call it.
I love it.
She goes there and she keeps getting this warning to not follow too deeply into the past. I can't remember exactly how it's said in the movie, but it's very eloquently described.
Yeah.
And she sees like the little snow silhouettes walking around, and she follows her grandfather and his instructions to essentially sabotage and betray all those people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And she kind of falls down into this ice cave. Mm-hmm. And then she like freezes because of it. Mm-hmm. And that was never really explained. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much that just wasn't explained, because sometimes that happens a lot in movies. I'm like, okay, why did you bother describing that or what that means?
Right.
But I hate when there's this really interesting idea.
Yeah.
This like little nugget of philosophical thought that is introduced into a movie, and it doesn't really ever get to be expressed fully. Because I think there was this really interesting idea and concept that perhaps digging too deeply into the details of dark and evil things is not good.
Right.
And that's like a really deep and intricate theme.
Yeah.
But they just kind of say it as a one-liner. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly it's really important to the story, but then it's not after that. You know, like it just never gets expressed like it often would be in literature or in something that was more dedicated to that idea. But they just hold on to this one little nugget and then it's just gone.
Yeah.
And I hate when movies do that, because I'm like, oh, I want you to explore this idea more, but you didn't.
Right.
It makes me sad. The movie that best illustrates this is Tomorrowland. Have you ever seen that movie?
No. I think you mentioned it last time, but I still haven't seen it.
Do you remember what it's about? Or it came out about 4 years ago. It's a terrible movie. It's actually based on Tomorrowland at Disneyland. Like they just took a park and said, okay, let's try and make a movie. Kind of like they did with Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
But Pirates of the Caribbean was good and Tomorrowland was
Tomorrowland is bad. I mean, it looks like the pictures that I'm seeing make me think like Interstellar meets like Meet the Robinsons. Like that's what I'm getting.
A pretty good description. It's really cheesy. It's really dumb. It was one of those movies where they just tried to have some like big name actors and didn't bother writing any story or anything like that.
Okay.
The whole point of the movie is this girl is trying to find her dad, I think it is, or she has some connection to George Clooney. I can't remember exactly.
Right. She's trying to find George Clooney, as many of us do.
Right. She's trying to find George Clooney, like many of us are trying. And in this journey, she happens upon this like VR headset that shows this amazing world of tomorrow, right? The future. And she goes on this quest with George Clooney and tries to find this land, essentially.
Right.
And when you get there, you find that Tomorrowland's like all destroyed and gone to pieces, essentially. And the bad guy has some like evil ray that will destroy the world or something. I can't remember. It
Oh
was,
my
again,
gosh. Okay,
awful.
yeah. Yeah. There's some Dr. Doofenshmirtz silliness. Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, the thing I remember though is that the VR headset that she had at the beginning was really like a commercial. And that the people at Tomorrowland were essentially just this amazing group of engineers that were building the world of tomorrow and sending out these VR headsets to try and get people to be excited about the future and have these goals and ambitions and unite and work together
Yeah.
to create this world of tomorrow, right?
Okay, yeah.
But what happens, according to the story, is that they sent out all these commercials, right, and gave the world this view of what they could be.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, because they were so distraught that they didn't have all these amazing things that they thought they could have, instead they kind of gave up and said, like, well, we can't get to that. That's impossible. So we might as well not try. And it actually led to more destruction and more pain because they didn't see how they could get to tomorrow. But there's only like one line in the movie that says all that. It's actually the guy that plays House, the doctor. He's the bad guy in that movie.
Ooh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And again, just a big actor trying
the big name
to
actor,
score
right?
points.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just has this one line on this idea that perhaps glimpsing too far in the future is not good for today because it shows that your current state is not what you could be. And so this jump was too large and kind of destroyed the people.
Whoa.
And it's like, wow, that's a really deep, interesting idea.
Yeah.
That you could have explored in this movie.
Yeah.
But instead you're talking about evil death ray thing and chasing George Clooney and robot that attacks house and stuff. It's like, what is going on? Why didn't you explore this amazing theme and philosophy and just you could have gone so many different ways with this, and instead you chose the worst possible thing to portray this idea.
Oh man, you're making me want to watch this movie. It sounds like you told me all the best parts, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta watch that.
Well, that's the problem is you won't see anything that I described. You'll see essentially a terrible, cheesy B-class movie, and then House say one line that is really cool. Like that's the entirety of that movie.
My head believes you, but my heart is just like, no, because you told me the plot, and the plot sounds interesting and good, and you told me that all these people are these two people that I like and that are good actors are gonna be in it. Like, it has to be a good movie, isn't it? Isn't it a good movie?
I'm sorry, my friend.
Now I think I have to watch it, but
I gave you a view too far in the future of a good movie that would be made that actually looks like this. And you cannot obtain it. I'm sorry.
Oh man. See, when you say it like that, like, yeah, of course this movie sounds like it's gonna be like that's a bit no, I'm gonna go watch that movie now. I can't not now.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll complain to you about it later, but
By the way, that was not the movie we're going to talk about next, just so everyone knows. We have one more in mind.
No. Sorry, that was not the next. Yeah. That sounds horrible. And I agree. Now that you bring it up, I agree. And this is okay, here's my theory. Okay, this is one of those things where I'm like, this is why we're pushing it into longer and longer and bigger things. Like, I think this exact reason is why, like, we want to make series and we want to make bigger movies, and we want to make multi-part movies and all this stuff so that we can pack in all these neat thoughts that we've had. You know, books do it really well because books have so much room. You know, it's like a single book can contain a whole lot more.
Right.
And a series of books contains even more. And so it's like movies are almost trying to catch up because there's so much that you want to know. And 2.5 hours is it's so little time in the scheme of things, you know, that you can only cover so much information in 2.5 hours. Whereas a book you read over days and weeks and months, and series of books you can read over years. I'm still working on one, and I just like The Wheel of Time is a book series that I'm reading right now. and it's so long.
My brother-in-law reads that.
Oh man, it's so long, dude. And I've been told that I got to a book, and this book is dragging me so bad. Like I'm having such a hard time finishing this one book. I've been told that this is like the worst it gets. Like this book and the book before it and the book after it, like this is the most boring this series gets. But it's like 16 books, you know. It's huge. It's this massive.
Right.
They're 30 hours each on Audible, and but the amount of, I don't know. It's like when I think about the first books that I read, and I only read them a year ago, but they feel like this distant memory of my childhood. You know, it's like
because there's so much information you've had since then about this
yeah,
storyline.
yeah, and I've been able to follow these characters through such a big, long, epic journey that it's just, there's so much I can't remember any part of what we've done and how we got here, and it's amazing, and especially a couple of the neatest ideas and neatest thoughts I've had about the series have come from this. I think this idea of like we've got time to explore, you know, we've got plenty of time to explore,
Right.
and so we're going to talk about all this stuff, and we're going to talk about it a lot because this is the stuff that makes it interesting.
Well, it's interesting to bring it up because anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Mm-hmm.
Not like one of those crazy that knows all the origin stories and the different names of all the swords, but
Not one of those ones.
I love the movies. And everyone complained that the movies were so long, but to me, the movies are so intricately woven, and he didn't ever introduce a theme that wasn't explored. He was so good about bringing the Lord of the Rings world, which is a very dense world, for sure. But he took just a chunk and made sure he cut off all the limbs that didn't connect to that chunk of the Lord of the Rings world and the Lord of the Rings stories. And he fully explored that chunk. He made sure every theme and idea that was in the Lord of the Rings stories that was of import was fully expressed and had time to develop. And that's why I love watching those movies. They don't feel slow to me because I love just analyzing all the subtleties that he provides when he directed that. Peter Jackson really did a good job with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But yeah, just this idea of being able to take the time to fully develop these themes and ideas.
Right, right. It's like he's finally been given the time, so he's going to roll with it, you know. And on another, sorry, just jumping around all over the place, but another thought that comes to mind is what's his name? Christopher Nolan and all of his movies. He did Inception, right?
Yeah, he did
Those
Inception.
movies feel like the opposite thing to me, where he's not trying to pull in a lot of different ideas. He's trying to fully explore one single topic, and we're just gonna drive through that topic all the way. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's how it feels to me when I think back on movies like Inception and Prestige and even the Batman trilogy. Like it feels like there's time to, I don't know. He uses the time to only focus on one idea.
Yeah.
He doesn't waste time looking around all over the place at all the different things that are happening. We're just going to talk about dreams, or we're just going to talk about magic, or we're just going to talk about like the Joker and Batman and this relationship that's going on. Like we're just going to get to it, and we're just going to
That's interesting. Sorry, one more tangent from that.
do it.
Spoiler alert for Prestige. If you haven't seen the Prestige, I highly recommend.
You have to go see it. But if you haven't seen it, do not listen to us talk about it.
Stop. Don't listen for like
Yeah.
3 minutes. Okay. But the thing I love about Prestige is, spoiler alert, if you know, at the end, you find out he essentially has a clone that's helping him do all the magic tricks. And everyone in my family liked the movie until that point. And they're like, oh, that's lame. You know, that's a terrible answer to this dilemma. And I was like, no, you're missing the point. Because yes, having a clone is cheesy. But the point is he said, what if a magician had a clone? What would be the resulting story that comes from that? And so he didn't take his story and said, oh, how do I answer that? Oh, I'll have a clone. He said, what would be the case if this was possible?
Yes.
What would build off of that? So he kind of built the story backwards, and that's why it feels so much better than just he didn't know what to do, so he just threw a clone in there, essentially, to solve his problems. It's like, no, he explored this idea. What if this was possible, and what are all the consequences of this being a possibility?
Seriously. I can't understand how your family didn't think like their minds weren't just blown at that moment. Like I seriously felt like the rug was pulled out from under my feet twice in that movie. I was like, the first time there's like the first big reveal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, whoa. And then that part goes, and I'm like, oh, no way. Like, and you don't see it. You just don't see it the whole movie. And then they go back through and they show you the scenes, and you're like, oh. And I agree. Ah, that's so cool. Man, when you say it like that, man, it gets me thinking about all sorts of stuff. Like then okay, so we're gonna take that theory. Inception. Well, what's that? Well, what if you get lost in your dreams? Like, what if you could go back into other people's dreams, and what if you just get lost? Yeah? And that's exactly what the whole movie's about. Right. It's about a person who gets lost in someone's dream, and then they get so far deep trying to change things and trying to pull off something great or big or whatever. And then like they get to the end, and it's like, well, are we still in a dream? Like, is it over?
Right.
Or are we still there?
How deep do you have to go to change someone's mind? What level is the consciousness at? That's the whole point of the movie.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry everyone for not giving a good warning on it. You just all spoiler bit warnings are out the bag right now. If we mention a movie, we might talk about it. And I'm sorry, but
we might have to just name our episode and then just put spoiler warning right in the title so that people know.
That would be good. I have nothing more to say. I want to say more about it, but I have nothing more to say. I agree with your thoughts.
We have tangented a lot, but I think we've explored some interesting themes. Much better than the movies.
And now that we've explored some of them slightly, we are going to abandon this course of action and not explore them all the way. Because I don't have enough research or thoughts on the matter. I love that fall. And that is, I think that's a fair criticism of the movie, but it's one of those ones where I'm like, what would you have done differently? It's like they only have so much time. You can only keep kids entertained for an hour and a half. So like pack as much in as you can, and everything else. I think it's best to just leave to that area of like, most people will just kind of not think about it, and it's okay. Just don't think about it. And it's fine.
That's fair. Any other thoughts on Frozen? We
are
almost finally done?
Finally done. I only have one, and it ties into the next movie that we're going to talk about, so it's perfect.
Okay.
The thing that I'm about to talk about is probably the most unfair requirement that I have for movies. I'm like, okay, movie, you're going to have to do this thing, but I never tell it until 3 years after I've seen it. It's like, or till I've already watched it, or till I'm already started the movie. Okay.
You need to reference me by name in your movie.
My name's not on that list. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this part of a movie is so important to me. It's so important that I'm worried about me making it too important by thinking about it too much. But I think it's so important. Okay, it's the very, very, very first part of the movie.
Okay.
Pre-movie, you have all your expectations and all of your thoughts and all of your prejudices that you're going to bring into a movie, right?
Right.
And then there's a moment where the movie starts, and then it has, for me, I think it really is just a couple of seconds to set the tone of the movie and to I don't know, either fulfill my expectations or to shatter them and leave me in awe. It's like, so I'm going to go through a couple examples.
Okay,
we're going to start with one of my all-time favorite movies, Tron Legacy. Okay.
We watched that the other day, by the way.
You guys did?
It's fresh in my mind.
I watched it without... Oh, I haven't watched it recently. Okay, you're going to have to tell me if this is accurate, because this is the way that I remember the beginning part of the movie. I remember the beginning part of the movie, it's a black screen, and then, whatever his name is.
Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges. He's like, the grid. That's like the first thing he says, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the moment, okay? When I'm in the theater and I hear that for the first time, oh my, it's so exciting, I'm like, oh, like this is going to be amazing. And then,
It does like an aerial view of lines going across the screen, and they slowly morph into buildings and cars and stuff.
And it's...
Yes, so...
It's just the perfect preparation for the movie, you know? It's like it prepares me perfectly. And it's like the perfect primer to get me going to be excited about the whole movie. Like
Right.
I'm excited about the whole movie after that.
Side note, that movie may be one of the most fun movies to watch visually,
Yes.
just because of all the amazing lighting. effects.
Yes.
Forget the story. I just like watching, like purely watching that movie. So
Yes,
cool.
yes.
Anyways,
Yeah,
continue.
With all of the movies that I love the most, sometimes it's just best not to think about it too much. Just don't think about it, and it's a great movie. I love that movie. It's just so much fun. Next example. I don't have many counter examples. I can't think of many off my head, mostly because they just pass into non-interest. You know, they just pass into my memory.
Right. Pass into mediocrity.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes, exactly. So next example, Frozen. Okay. And I already talked about this, but it's like, so what's the first thing you see on screen? Well, they do. I think they might do the Frozen logo,
Right.
or it just starts, and the first thing that you see that relates to the movie is colors, but you can't really see what it is, and it's not really clear to me. It's clear to me now, but when I first saw it, it was just like, what am I looking at? And then like obvious footsteps, and you're like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And then a saw breaks through the ice, and you're looking from inside the ice out, and the saw breaks through, and then they start this song that was so unexpected and so counter to what I expected from the movie that from the very first notes of that song, like not even the whole song, just the very first notes, I just like, it grabbed me, you know, it just grabbed me, and I was just like, whoa, like what is this gonna be? Like I'm so excited now. and then, you know, and then follows the rest of the movie that I love.
I will say I agree with you on that point. I think that added to my hype about Frozen when I first saw it. That led to the greater drop off.
Right.
But I agree. That was a really cool opening to that movie.
Well, and this is why I say it's totally unfair, because it's like, is that a good representation of the rest of the movie? Not really. The rest of the movie is nothing like it. Like you never see the ice miners again, you know? They come up in as a profession, but you don't see them ever again, and it's not really a big part of anything. And you know, these moments aren't really fair,
Right.
to the movie, except for when they nail it, and then it makes it the best movie ever.
It's just one of those added bonuses, just the extra, not needed to be an amazing movie, but almost all amazing movies have it just because they nail everything.
Yes.
And that's one of the things they nail.
Yes. Thank you. Third example, Greatest Showman. There was a lot of hype about this movie before I finally went and saw it. Like I knew the hype, and I was like, uh-oh, like I'm nervous, because it's like a lot of hype usually means that I won't like the movie. Like it's a pretty high correlation. You know, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. But I was like, we have to go see it. You know, I have to go see it. So we went and saw it in the theater, the only way to see that movie, and that opening sequence, not even the whole song, like the first 10-15 seconds of that,
just Hugh Jackman's silhouette while he sings under his breath in the stands.
you got like old timey lettering that's introducing the movie, and then this like explosive people slamming their feet against you know the bleachers, like this explosive sound that is very rich. You know, I'm sure they added a lot of sound to that to make that a very rich sound. Yeah, and then just Hugh Jackman and starting the song, and it just, from that very moment, I was taken with the movie. You know, I was like, I can't care what comes after. Like, I know this movie is a bad representation of everything that the circus was, but I love the movie. You know,
You're saying it's not historically accurate. Come on.
it may be slightly wrong.
That's everything it was. I will say I like The Greatest Showman probably more than I should have, but it's one of the first movies I saw with my wife when we were first dating. So I think that may have had some influence on that. But I'm just going to say I like the movie, so we'll go from there.
Yes. And even, okay. Now that's my third example of like, just the very first downbeat was, I was struck, you know, I was taken with the whole movie. And I loved the whole movie. You know, I in that moment, I was able to forgive and let go of everything that movie was supposed to be and everything that I thought about the movie. And I just watched it. You know, I just enjoyed the experience. Like it's almost like it took away everything that I might not like and everything that might cause me to not like it, you know? So the last movie on this list is the next movie we're going to talk about.
It's finally the actual next movie we're talking about. And this one I do know.
So David and I watched the new Star Wars movie.
Oh, come on, man. You got to announce it better than that. We watched the Star Wars movie. Talking about beginnings. Star Wars has perhaps the most epic beginning of any movie ever.
That is true. Oh, that's true.
When the letters come on the screen, there is nothing that makes me put down my guard more than that. Like, I instantly jump into the Star Wars world every time those come on the screen.
Yes. Okay. And seriously, number 7 and number 8 did that to me as well. They did that to me bad. But okay. But see, that wasn't the moment though. Okay. Here's the surprising thing. It was actually the scene following that.
Really?
That actually had my attention. That actually caused me to be interested in the movie for the rest of the movie, I think. I don't know what causes what. But, because I expected the Star Wars theme. And I expected the scroll and the great music,
Right.
John Williams carrying this 9-movie series, it's amazing with his musical talent. Gosh, he's amazing.
He's essentially a wizard, I've determined.
Yeah. Yes. A magical wizard of orchestras. But it was the whole,
flying to Exegol and talking to the Emperor.
Mm-hmm. There was all the murderizing and yeah, sorry, spoilers everyone. And then flying, going to the planet. It almost like it pressed the reset button in my brain of okay. Now we're going to start another Star Wars movie and a lot of stuff has happened and let's try it again. Okay. Let's just try it again. Cause I thought that the very first sequences were really well done. I was very, right. It was visually striking and also very much interesting. I thought the actors and the people in the movie, were setting up the movie and they did a great job. I thought Kylo Ren was the best of the whole movie. He carried that movie so hard.
So I'm guessing you like this movie.
I wanted to hate it. I wanted a movie to complain about, but I just came away with a movie that we can talk about that in a second. But but going back to my point, those first moments in a movie, it's the most unfair thing, but that almost regularly determines my favorite movies in the whole world.
Interesting.
The last example I had was Godzilla, with the very first scene being the guy losing his wife in a nuclear reactor meltdown. And it's so striking and so serious, there's no jokes. And it's it sets the tone for the rest of the movie for me of this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a lot, And I don't know.
Right.
I like that movie a lot, but that's okay. Other people don't agree with me, and that's okay. So anyway, it's really important to me, and that's all I really wanted to say about it. I don't know if you have more thoughts on it, but it's that's a make or break moment for movies for me. Is the very downbeat of the very first scene.
Before we continue on Star Wars,
yeah,
which I don't think we need to beat to death because I feel like there's already so many reviews and stuff on Star Wars. But I do want to talk about it for a second.
Yeah.
But now that you say it, it's also one of the favorite things about the openings for my favorite movies, Lord of the Rings. Because they all start in just darkness, right? Just black screen.
Yeah.
And the music slowly fades in.
Yeah.
And there's usually some narration. Like in the first one, it's Lady Galadriel kind of giving the overview of the background and the origin of this world,
Right, the whole story,
and
yeah.
It's a different type of opening, but it very much fits the nature and style of Lord of the Rings, this kind of slow drifting into this other world that you're now entering.
Ooh.
And
yes.
so I like those openings as well. And then the Lord of the Rings slowly fades onto the screen and then comes back out.
Yes.
Anyways, so I've not thought about this point before, but you're right. Amazing movies don't have to have it, but almost all amazing movies do.
Right.
Because they just nail getting you into the movie.
Right. And this is actually, you know what? One movie actually really botched it for me. The one movie that's a counterexample that I can think of. Planet of the Apes, the third new one. So the first and second ones
nailed it in comparison.
They nailed it, right? Yes, thank you. They killed it. And for both of them, what do they open up with? The second one opens up with Caesar's eyes, and the war paint that he has painted on.
Really?
Yeah, the white stripes, the skull-looking paint. That's how the second one starts. The third one botched it up because they didn't start with the eyes.
I'd forgotten about that aspect.
Like, this matters a lot to me. Because it bothered me so bad. Because I was like, this isn't how the Planet of the Apes movies are supposed to start. The second one starts with, it actually starts with the plane. It's the globe and the plane. It's the light points that go around, and it spreads. The light spreads, and then you slowly see that it's a globe. It's the world.
Oh, right.
Because of the spreading of the virus.
Which is the same as the end of the first one.
Exactly. And I just, and they ended the third one correctly, but they messed up the beginning, and it put me off so much. And then the rest of the movie, I was like, it's good, but it's not the second, and it's not the first. They were so much better.
The second was definitely the best.
Oh, so good. Oh.
I was just thinking of the whole kind of forest sabotage scene that's in the beginning of the second one. I really like that scene.
Yes. Yes. So good.
Anywho, going back to Star Wars.
Back to Star Wars.
Have we talked about enough movies in this episode yet?
Y'all sick of it yet? Because, I mean, I have more things to talk about. I really want to talk to David about Star Wars.
So, I just have 2 thoughts on Star Wars, and then I think we'll really be done for movies. We'll probably have to take a break for like the next 3 episodes to make sure we don't say anything about movies to make up for this episode.
Okay. Well, we'll see about that. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. There's no good movies coming out for a while anyways. But,
That's true.
Going back to Star Wars. So you said it felt like a reset button.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this movie was that in more ways than just the opening.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely liked it. J.J. Abrams definitely, I think he made all the right moves.
Yeah.
Just by essentially ignoring that the 8th one ever existed. Even though you and I had quite a discussion on The Last Jedi. And I even really honestly like The Last Jedi.
Okay.
Even with all its faults.
Okay.
But I think J.J. Abrams had the right perspective of just essentially making a story that almost could exist entirely without The Last Jedi ever occurring. And so he sets this reset button in a lot of ways. First of all, the Emperor coming back is a big one.
Yeah.
I think that was wise. My only complaint about that is that I don't think it had to be the Emperor.
Right.
I think you could have done it in the same way, where Rey is still Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter, but the Emperor's not back. It's just like the Sith still is kind of this permanent existence. When one goes down, there's just another one that rises. That's kind of a big theme in Star Wars, right? The good will rise to meet the evil.
Right,
and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I feel like you could have redone the story just a little bit, where it doesn't have to be the Emperor, but some new Sith Lord, just like Snoke, just like any of them. You could kind of start even the beginning dialogue almost the same way, that Snoke was just another toy, or not toy, but
pawn.
Puppet. Pawn. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes, puppet.
Another puppet. Snoke's another puppet. Palpatine was just another Sith Lord.
Right.
But there's kind of this permanent Sith base. And maybe there's not one single Sith master, but there's just always one that rises. Maybe you could have done something with that. And then this whole Palpatine still being alive doesn't feel quite as awkward as a premise.
Right. Well, and that's such a good idea. That's so good. I don't know why they didn't use it. Like, that's so good. Because
why didn't J.J. Abrams talk to me is essentially the
right.
question.
Right. Well, it's like they could have just kept the Emperor. You could keep the Emperor and then remove what was the Emperor of olden days. He doesn't have to be the same Emperor. He can just be this voice that speaks of the Sith. Instead of being Emperor Palpatine. It could have just been the Sith.
Right.
And he could have just been like, well, you're the next successor. It's like we needed a new successor, and you're the next successor. Because you're Palpatine's granddaughter, and it's like, but you're Palpatine is dead. that would have, that makes me want to just start throwing things. I don't know. That makes me really, because I feel like you and I just came up with a better version of that movie just sitting here for 2 seconds. Like, your idea,
Right.
perfect. It's perfect. I love it.
Right. Well, they went through this effort to establish this huge like Sith planet, right? Exegol and the Sith base, and that would have been a perfect starting point of saying like, where do they come from anyways? Like, what is this force that's acting out? This evil doings. Where do they come from?
Yeah.
And they kind of established that. So why not just start from ground zero with that and say like, here's the new current one, and they just keep coming because they're just this permanently rising force that needs to be reckoned with.
Right. Well, and then it doesn't leave the whole Emperor Palpatine is back. How'd they do that? Question up in the mind, Because it's like, oh, it's his body, but it's not him, He's dead,
Right.
Anywho,
so that was my first complaint. I mean, I went with it.
Yeah.
I bought it, but when I saw that, I'm like, you could have done this differently. I feel like you could have just made that simple change, and it would have just felt more natural to the progression of the story.
Yeah.
Other things, again, he did a really good job of ignoring the entire 8th movie, which again, I think was wise.
Yes.
But I feel like there was a couple ways you could have acknowledged it just like a little bit, like acknowledge where it came from.
Yeah.
I do appreciate especially the Rose character.
Oh,
They
yeah.
essentially just like threw under the bus and just never made her have any important parts because no one liked her in Last Jedi.
Right. It's like, oh, is there going to be a budding relationship? Nope. Moving on. Next.
Yeah, so that was funny. So I would say my biggest complaints are kind of the beginning premise. They could have adjusted that slightly, made it way better.
Yeah.
And the ending. I liked it, but again, something I feel like they could have just changed a little bit, and it would have been way better. Here's my idea.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I should say I can't give them too many complaints because I heard they filmed it like 20 different ways or something crazy.
I have also heard that it was like, I heard 3. I've only heard 3, but like, yeah.
Okay, I'm sure the number grows every time someone
right.
says it. But...
3, 10, 50, 100. Right, yeah.
Right, but so they tried many things, so they've obviously thought it through. But in the end, there's this theme from The Last Jedi that Rey was nobody, right? And there's kind of ends with the kid that's kind of the sweeper, and it kind of implies that he might be a force sensitive kid, right? And maybe anybody could be a Jedi.
Okay.
Right? That's kind of the ending theme of Last Jedi. And then in this one, obviously they're like, no, Rey, I was just joking. You actually are someone important.
Right.
Which
yeah.
I called that they would do, if you remember.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of expected that to occur. So maybe it wasn't the most amazing thing for me to call that. But I felt like they were going to go back on that in episode 9.
Yeah.
Anywho, that's not the point. The point is, at the end, Rey and Kylo Ren go through this big, huge thing. And the whole ending's kind of about Rey. And even the last thing, like Rey being a Skywalker, which I thought was kind of cheesy.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Says
I'm Rey Skywalker.
I have a massive opinion on that, so we'll get back to that.
All right, I feel like the end was on the wrong focus. I feel like it would have been way cooler if Rey and Kylo had more of a role together.
Okay.
And then at the end, like, I don't know, maybe Kylo dies. I'm good with that. But it should have been like Rey goes out and finds like the sweeper kid or something, and she starts building up the Jedi again.
Okay.
Or, like it didn't really leave a door open for anything, because it's like, oh, I'm Rey. I'm cool. I'm a Jedi. But it's like, yeah, but where are you going? Are we supposed to believe now that like the Jedi are coming back? Are we supposed to believe this is the end of this constant battle between good and evil and the Jedi?
Right.
Like it just kind of shut the door. This movie completely isolates on both sides. It doesn't really acknowledge anything before it and anything after it. It just is itself.
Right.
And refuses to connect to the rest of the canon.
Right, yeah.
And so that was my main complaint. I feel like you could have adjusted the ending. I feel like Kylo Ren should have had a bigger role, because he is still a Skywalker on his mother's side. And so I feel like, again, the Skywalker's legacy is kind of to bring balance to the Force.
Yeah.
Right? That's the whole prophecy. So I feel like Kylo really should have been the one that defeats the Emperor, or been the main. He kind of just gets like thrown to the side, and It's like, well, that's not really cool because he's supposed to be the one that brings balance to the Force. That's the call of the Skywalkers, you know.
Right, right.
I guess they kind of did that because Rey just calls herself a Skywalker, but that's not really
right. Perpetuating the idea that anyone can be a Skywalker as long as you fight for good, you know. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that was lame. So
baloney.
That's my main complaint. A little bit of adjustments on both sides, and you would have had an even more amazing movie. I still really enjoyed it, but I just felt it didn't feel like it fits with the canon. So
right, yeah. Oh man,
I'm curious your thoughts.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my thoughts are summed up in the first words that came to my mind after the movie was over. Like the first words that came to my mind were, "Oh my gosh, he did it!" Like J.J. Abrams did it. He made an enjoyable ninth movie. Like he did it. I was so impressed and amazed that I was even interested in the movie at all. And after listening to some stuff and talking to you about it and talking about it with my wife and my brother, here's my thought and what I think really doomed this movie, okay? Here's where I think this movie was doomed.
Okay.
It was the moment that they gave somebody else the job of directing the eighth movie, okay? I don't know why. I can't conceive of what had happened. But if J.J. Abrams had directed all three, I think what would have happened is the third movie would have felt a little bit less dense and a little bit less full of unexplored plot directions.
Right.
If he had been given an eighth movie to make. You know, it's like, what it felt like to me was it's like, okay, there's 7 and there's 8. I hated 8. You know, I have no good feelings about 8 at all. And then it feels like, okay, now J.J. Abrams is back on the train for number 9, and he's like, well, let's take what we had from number 7.
I got more ground to cover now.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, let's take what we have from number 7, and then draw the lines through the important story points in number 8, you know? Like, we're just going to draw a straight line through it and go right to number 9. You know, we're not going to deal with anything else that came along with number 8. And we're just going to talk about what happens in number 9, what my story for the 8th movie was, and the 9th movie, all in one. You know, I feel like if he had been given that extra 2.5 hours, he would have made a great movie. I also feel like I feel like he was being like, I don't know how to say this. Like, there was too many things pulling on him.
Well, you could feel that a lot of the changes in the movie were very drastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Emperor Palpatine thing, General Hux like suddenly being good. That was never explained.
Yeah.
Just like he didn't want Kylo Ren to succeed. Like it was a very quick,
yeah,
okay, I guess he's helpful now.
Right.
But surely that would have been a theme he could have explored, like you said, if he had the 8th movie. I agree.
Right.
That's a very good point.
I harbor absolutely no bad feelings for that guy and his role in making the 9th movie. Because I'm like, you know what? I think he did it. You know, I think he made a great movie given an enormous, ridiculous set of constraints. Because like the stuff that happens is just ridiculous, and I don't think he would have done it that way anyway. You know. Oh man, can I just talk about stuff? Is that okay?
We don't have a ton of time, but yes.
I know. I'll move fast.
Do it
fast. Everyone, hang on for a second. We're gonna go through a couple of my thoughts. Okay, seriously, for the end, I don't know why they killed Kylo. I think Kylo Ren should have survived. I think Rey should have died, and I think Kylo Ren should have survived. It would have fit the title, it would have fit the movie, and it would have fit his story arc, you know?
Right. Well, and even this whole like thing of healing, that they did, it's like, oh, perfect. Oh, why does he have to die? I guess he gave his whole life force.
Right. Yeah. It's like, well, she was dead. Yeah.
Even you could see the flip of that. Like Kylo defeats the Emperor, he's incapacitated. And Rey has to give her life force to Kylo.
Right.
I feel like that would have been more compelling than the opposite, personally.
So much better. I was kind of bummed when it's like, oh, surprise, Rey survived. I'm like, what? No. Like, Kylo Ren is the Skywalker. The title is Rise of Skywalker. Okay, but seriously, when they dropped the Rey was a Palpatine, I was like, oh, what? Like, it totally blindsided me. And I just, oh man, I just ate that up. That was great. Oh, that was so good.
That didn't affect me quite as much because I've heard theories on YouTube since number 7 that she was a Palpatine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's been a theory online. So
Man,
part of me is like just a little suspicious. Like, did J.J. Abrams just like look for good theories on the internet and then be like, "Yep, we're going with that one."
we're gonna do that. That one's shocking to many people. We'll do that one. That's fair, and that makes me glad I stayed off the internet about it because I have. I don't know. I was very glad to be surprised by that nugget of information.
It's true. It probably would have been better for me too.
Yes, yes. Whatever weird love triangle stuff was going on, so sick of it. Like, so sick of it.
Yeah,
Like, come on, guys.
that's true.
Like, can we just have a Star Wars movie? I just want action. I don't want love triangle weirdness.
And this goes back to your point with if you had number 8, that probably could have been established better. But I never knew who was supposed to like who.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
is Rey going for Poe or Poe Dameron, or is she with
Right.
Kylo or with Finn?
Right. Like,
Like,
what's...
Finn's still going for Rose? Like, I don't understand what's going
Right,
on.
right. It's like, is Finn interested in Rey, or are they just on a galactic mission together? Like, I just can't understand what's going on.
I don't think J.J. Abrams could have resolved it very clearly anyways. So
No.
I think he just avoided the question.
Yeah, right. Well, see, and that's one of those times where I think like he actually wasn't in charge of that part. You know, somebody else was pulling the strings behind that one, and that's why I feel like it was so disjointed and weird. Like, it's like, this doesn't belong
Right.
here. I just, it's like I listened to the Hello Internet about it, and they went through all their criticisms, and I was like, yep. Like, I agree with every criticism I've ever heard of that movie. And at the end of the day, you know, I had a great time. I thought that the acting in number 9 was the best acting out of any of them. Like, they had the most interesting things happening in number 9. Number 8, the characters felt dead to me. And same with number 7. Like, everyone just felt dead and stale and boring. Like, mostly Kylo Ren and Rey, to me, they just weren't interesting. Like, they were not compelling in the 7th and 8th movies for me. And in number 9, they were all of a sudden. Like, they were finally, I don't know, given the right things to do to be compelling, you know?
That's fair.
I thought it was visually spectacular. I thought that it was so stupid. Gosh, such a stupid movie. Because there was, like, the big reveal, right, on Exegol, where they're like, surprise, like, we have 100,000 million death-destroying Star Destroyers, like, Star Killer-based Star Destroyers. I'm like, oh my gosh. The Hello Internet part about that I found really deeply funny. But I think that's
I'll have
just...
to listen to that.
Yes. It's like the stupidest thing they could have done. Like, I'm like... Like, this is a thing that everyone has a problem with, but mostly me. Like, I'm like, it's just silly. Like, it looked cool for a second, and then I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? Like, that's too many Star Destroyers. Like,
I just wish for once that the main problem in Star Wars wasn't that they have a bigger ship, like, or a bigger vehicle to destroy planets. Like, they gotta get past that storyline in the movies.
yeah. I agree. It's like, there's just like a really quick clip of one of the new super Star Destroyers blowing up a planet, and you're like, okay, great, awesome, moving on. Like, I'm bored of this.
Right.
I was bored of this.
Surely
40
they
years
didn't
ago.
get past that and having a fuel race with a Star Destroyer.
Oh my
neither of those
gosh.
storylines work. We need something else that
Oh my god.
actually feels intimidating and
Yeah. Something
Anywho.
that's actually interesting. Maybe they could actually, you know, be floating in different directions. I for one would really appreciate if they were all sorts of directions instead of all the same direction. Like, like, can we explore space a little bit more, please, everyone? Like, I would like, I don't know.
Could the Sith Lords have like a sabotage plan set up for once, like intricate espionage and more on the ground type people, you know, instead of just lots and lots and lots of ships?
We'll see. No, this is why they had to get destroyed, because simply they had gone too crazy with building planet-destroying weapons. They were like, fine, we'll kill all of the Sith, and then we'll start over with new Sith, okay? Like, come on, guys.
Right. We'll start over with a more creative set of Siths.
Yeah. Oh, man, when Rey freaking stabs Kylo, oh, man, I was like, what? Like, ah, it got me so good. I was like, whoa.
That whole set of scenes I really enjoyed. I was afraid like the turn for Kylo
Uh-huh.
might be too fast,
Yeah.
but I felt like they handled that really well. That
Oh,
he
yeah.
kind of felt pretty natural in his switching to the good side, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah. I agree 100%. I thought yeah. I wasn't grumpy with it, you know. I was like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, this is how it is, you know. This is just
Right.
he's finally just tired and he's just done with it, you know. He just wants to move on and do something that's not horrible for once. Um and he does. He's great. Except for his like stupid little I just wanted to smack him. I was like, just because you're good now doesn't mean you can be funny during your final fight scene with all of your whatever Kylo's Raiders or whatever. He like shrugs and like kind of does a silly thing a couple of times during that fight, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like no, okay.
Don't you know that good side means more comedic? Honestly,
Like I
that's
want
how
him
it
to
translates.
be, I want him to be the beginning of number 9 Kylo with the end of number 9 Kylo's intentions. You know, that's what I want. That's this is so much
The
to ask.
same cold-faced, deep intensity.
Murderizing machine.
Don't mess with me, Kylo.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was so visually impressive that I just so many parts of the movie I was just like, this is pretty cool. Oh my gosh, this is cool. And the stormtrooper. So you remember when when Rey like blows up the transport, and they're like, oh my gosh, we just killed Chewie.
Right.
That scene, I was like, oh my gosh, did they really just? I'm both happy and sad that Chewie came back. Like I was like, hooray, he's
Right.
back. But like that was a really intense scene because of it, you know, because of the fact that like, oh my god, and like the stormtroopers' reaction, I was just like, whoa, dude, like he's finally like acting, you know, he's finally like the character instead of somebody just like some random dude just playing some, you know. I feel like he finally he was able to get in, like, not that even the actor did anything different, just that he just felt more natural to me. And I don't know. Light speed skipping, okay? Stupidest thing I've ever seen. So stupid. That's not how it works. And even if it was how it works, you don't jump from planet to planet. You jump from empty space to empty space, because that's what light speed is for. You know, you do all those calculations so that you don't hit anything. Because if you hit anything at that speed, you die.
Well, in all the old movies too, I can't remember if they alluded to this or not, but like, wasn't that the whole point, to make sure they don't go into light speed, because then you couldn't catch them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I feel like once that was the whole point of all the tractor beams and stuff.
Right.
Like, make sure they don't get to light speed, or else
Right. Well,
and they won't be able to get to them.
Like number 8 started to destroy that with like, surprise, we can track you through light speed. You're like, whatever. Like, shut up. Like, you guys have ruined an interesting part of Star Wars. The last battle scene where all the people showed up. It was so cheesy. I felt like cheese just like pouring on my head and down my shoulders. I was like, oh my gosh, you couldn't have picked a more
crappy Kraft Whiz cheese. You know,
yeah, with the little shake cam, just all over everything. Everyone in the theater just had one. It was just spewing it all over me. I was like, oh my gosh, is this really how you're going to play this card?
It just goes with the same silly premise that they always have, because how are you going to destroy a fleet that big unless you have a happy-go-lucky group of people that want to help you? You know, like,
yeah, funny, happy group of people. And like, seriously, how did they even survive? I have no idea. Like, so like, okay, yeah, the Star Destroyers, they can't move. They're stuck. Okay, there were TIE fighters and 10 million Star Destroyers worth of TIE fighters. Like, I thought they were like an aircraft carrier. Like, I thought they had a bunch of those things, you know?
And Star Destroyers still have like weapons on them.
Yeah.
They're not just like flat objects.
Oh man.
Well, and the other one that made me laugh was with this whole Exegol thing. I thought it was cool they kind of established this planet of the Sith, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I was just sitting there going, who's driving all of those? Are there like crews on there? Like, have they just been sitting there for 30 years on Exegol? Like, do they not get any breaks? Like,
right. It's like, what?
Did they just get orders from the emperors to sit in this port for 30 years?
Yeah.
And wait for something to happen? I don't know.
Wait for Kylo Ren to finally turn up. Like, ugh. Okay, and then like the black dude and the girl that we find and all of her people, they're all like stormtroopers, right? Like kidnapped at childhood, brainwashed stormtroopers.
Right.
And then, like, one of my favorite complaints about the movie, why'd they go and murder so many stormtroopers? Like, they're in that Star Destroyer for so long, and there's so many, they just kill so many of them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, can we please not?
About that, but that's a good point.
Like, who gets shot? Poe gets shot in the arm. It's like, that's it? With all those people? Like, come on. Like, and supposedly they are all kidnapped children. Like, oh, they're child slaves. Like, maybe we shouldn't kill them all. You know, maybe we should be a little bit smarter about all this. Whatever.
Well, they're probably assuming that the viewers are like me and will forget that fact while they're watching the movie.
There was so much that I just like forgave just offhand during the movie. I was like, whatever. I don't care. This is a great movie. This is fun. Okay, one of my favorite parts, I think it might be my favorite part of the movie, was Sith Lord Rey when she like speaks and just like smashes Rey. I was just like, whoa. Like it's so short and but it's so like creepy and scary that I really liked that part. And I wish they would have done more with that.
I just think that's interesting because that was one of the least favorite parts of my brother-in-law. So
really,
yeah,
why?
I don't know why.
Oh,
I thought it was good. Wasn't like strongly either way. I was just like, oh, that's reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, you know. But,
okay, yeah. I don't know. The whole movie was so cheesy and so weird, and there's all the weird new Force stuff, but I loved that they skipped 8. Like he just totally skipped 8. Well, because 8's all about like squishing everything that 7 was about. It kills me. It's like this little petty fight, and I'm like, guys, can we just not have messed up the trilogy by giving it to someone else? You know, for a second.
Right. I feel like you can watch 7 and then 9 and not miss anything.
Nope.
I don't feel you will be lost on anything in the storyline.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree.
I think he did a really good job. I think he did everything he needed to do. Yep. It is sad he didn't get a direct 8.
Yeah.
And maybe in a distant future we'll get to make it the way it should have been.
I'm okay with putting this one to rest. And the other thing, one more thing that I really liked. I actually really liked the very ending scene with just the double sunset and Rey and BB-8 just sitting there. I was just like, wow, what a cool looking thing to end on, you know? Like, what a nice way to end it. Like, I wish Kylo Ren was standing there instead of Rey, but like, whatever.
Or they would just end with that before she says the stupid,
oh my god,
Rey Skywalker. If you would have just ended with that, I would have been satisfied with that too. If you just like cut at the burying of the lightsabers.
Yeah.
It would have felt more complete than her saying Rey Skywalker, because it takes the focus off of the amazing storyline that's been 9 movies.
Right.
Instead turns it to her. It's like,
right, exactly.
What's the point now?
Okay, another question. Why'd she sled down that thing into that place? Like, she sat her butt on a sled that was made out of a door and slid down into that place where Luke used to live. Like, I was like, you have feet. Like, we're not 3. Like, I'm not a child. Walk down there, gosh dang it. Like, don't slide. It's like a 10-foot hill. Like, you'll be fine to walk. Man,
where's your comedic good side intuition here, Aaron? You gotta have the fun-loving good hero in this movie.
I mean, I would have been fine.
But it should have been Kylo Ren and Rey riding tandem.
Oh my gosh. Nothing more. I don't think I would have disliked anything more than them getting hitched after one of them saving both of their lives, you know. I would have just been like, whatever guys, whatever. This is stupid. I'm done, you know. Like, one of you has to die. Somebody has to die. We killed all the Sith. Someone has to die. So there's supposed to be balance, right? Balance?
All right. I think we should call it good, my friend.
I think you're right. Sorry, everybody.
We have talked a lot about movies.
Indeed.
be done for the time being.
Yes.
Until episode 10 comes out.
I have no. What? No. What?